I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a moment of silence. Just remember there was a trooper shot over in Yancey County a couple hours ago. So remember of silence. Just remember him. Okay. Next is the agenda approval. Do you have any amendments? One amendment is to item 8 is to strike it from the agenda and move item 13 to 8.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion.
Why are you striking that item from the agenda, Mr. Chair?
Because I don't think it has any place in local government. Department of Justice, we are not Supreme Court. And everybody has different views. I guarantee every one of us has something little about it. So I just don't think it's appropriate to have it on our agenda. Got a motion? Second? All in favor? Next. Opposed, I'm sorry. Next is approval of the November 9th special meeting minutes, November 9th regular minutes, and November 30th special minutes. Chance to put those.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Now, we have public comment. We have, looks like 12 on public comment. It's for 3 minutes. We will only be able to do 10, is what the new policy says since adopted in August 13th, 2019. The 11th and 12th one can, at the end of the meeting, speak. We're not going to communicate with you. We're just here to listen for y'all's concerns, whatever. So, first on the agenda, and Mandy will be keeping time. She will get up and start speaking. So the first one is Elizabeth Gold.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Elizabeth Gullum. I serve on the Board of MEs, which is formerly Communities and Schools. I also am a founding member of Sustainable Madison, of Madison Has Heart. We've raised $100,000 for heating in the county over the last 7 years. And I've also been just appointed to the Board of Riverlink. So I just wanted to share that with you all to let you know that I care very deeply about my community. And I'm out here and I'm paying attention and I'm watching. And I'm extremely grateful for the actions that you just took, because I agree that certainly would seem to be an overreaching part of your agenda. And so I'm not going to speak what I was going to speak about. What I would like to ask you all is to deeply consider honoring Tammy Cody at some point this year, because I have watched that woman serve our community. I have watched her cry tears for the people who have been sick. I know she calls the hospital when people are sick. And I've also witnessed her be a victim of verbal abuse from people at school board meetings. And so I really think it's incumbent upon this board to show and to recognize the hard work that she would not take that. She would say that it's her staff, and I wholeheartedly agree. But as we know, strong leaders are what make a team successful. And so I would like to, at some point, have you put a resolution on that would honor Tammy Cody in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Next one is Jim Thorson.
Thank you for letting
Hello,
us.
Jim.
Evening, Jim.
Hello. I'm speaking in opposition to Mike Garrison's proposed resolution to have the other Madison County Commissioners support his plea to support a state heartbeat bill. There are several factors that make me oppose this resolution, and I hope the other commissioners will also oppose it. In the U.S., the CDC reports there were approximately 620,000 abortions in 2020. A pro-life group says over 1 million, but there are only around 135,000 adoptions. The U.S. has approximately 400,000 foster children waiting for adoption, with over a quarter of those not able to return to their parents or relatives. Being a recent volunteer as a guardian ad litem, I have seen teenagers who have become mothers not able to care for their infants. The numbers of unwanted children would increase greatly, and already our stressed social workers would see large increases in their number of cases. Are you ready, Mike, or are your adult children ready to adopt? It is a personal question only you and your kids may answer, but the reality is only 2% of Americans adopt. Despite 62% of infants being placed in adoptive homes the first month, many of the older foster children spend an average a little more than 3 years in the foster care system. Older children languish, and if you and many, many, many more don't adopt, our foster care system would be overrun with needy children. The heart of a fetus starts beating at 5 to 6 weeks after conception, about the same time the fetus becomes visible to the unaided eye. The heart is fully formed by the 10th week. The heartbeat bill would prohibit abortions prior to many women knowing they are pregnant. And why the heart? The brain begins to form at 3 weeks. So why the heartbeat? There seems to be an emotional attachment to the heartbeat and not the whole fetus. If limiting abortion is the overall goal, the adage, love the fetus, hate the child, seems to fit. The heartbeat resolution is totally dismissive of the law of the land, Roe v. Wade, which it was established in 1973. If you want to change the law, do it legitimately instead of through the back door. Go after the original law, Roe v. Wade. It is essentially unconstitutional to endorse this heartbeat resolution with the existing law already in place. But let's be clear, no one wants to abort. It is a need or a necessary evil in our troubled society. I can't imagine what a woman goes through deciding to have an abortion. Thoughts must be painful, like, I'm killing someone. I can't afford it. I hate kids.
Jim, that's it.
Okay?
Next up,
Can I pass these to you?
sure.
Thank you. All right, here, guys. Thank you, guys.
Next up is Elizabeth Harris.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Harris. I'm a former resident of Madison County. I am a nurse. I'm a BSN, so bachelor level nurse. I'm also a birth doula, so I've experienced walking with women throughout their pregnancy and then being present at their deliveries. And that includes my daughter, who's 20 years old, who had a son a couple years ago. So I have a 2-year-old grandson who I personally have sole custody of now. So I raised my daughter as a single mother, and I was able to achieve a bachelor's degree in nursing only by the grace of God, and be supported by a wonderful network of support. I look at my grandson and I see the struggle. The struggle is real, but I look at him and I'm so grateful for his uniquely made human life. And what I would like to say is that I serve now, I'm not nursing, I'm working for a national nonprofit that does outreach, loving, peaceful, woman-centered outreach in front of abortion facilities across the nation. So I get to talk to leaders that we have in place across the nation and hear the stories of what our advocates do there. And they offer real hope and real help to women and men that are contemplating abortion because they're afraid. And what I believe in is better support systems with our government to support families in choosing life. And you have a wonderful organization here called Abiding Hope, which is underutilized in this community. They are right there offering free help to families in need. And I just 100% I 100% believe with all of my heart that women can be truly empowered by choosing life. And if they're unable to raise that child, then gift that life to someone else who can take that on and love that baby unconditionally. And I just want to say that I did a community health assessment project for nursing school here in this county. I decided to do Madison County for my project. I did a lot of research. I interviewed a lot of people in the county. One of them is sitting in this room right now at the table here. And I just want to say that what I learned is that Madison County stands for traditional family values. It stands for God. It stands for freedom. And it stands, one of the common themes I heard was caring for your neighbor, taking care of your neighbor. And what better way to serve the most vulnerable in our society, the voiceless, that preborn baby in its mother's womb that has absolutely no say. And at fertilization, all of the DNA is there for that uniquely made human being. Everything is there. All that it needs is time, and it needs nourishment to grow and develop into what we all are right now. And so I really believe in personhood and the rights of that uniquely made human person and standing for that. And I believe Madison County can be a strong voice and show North Carolina and show Raleigh that we still stand for traditional family values, and we still stand for God, and we still stand for freedom.
Thank you. Next is Allie Perkins.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Aline Perkins, and I'm a homeschooling mom of 6 children. I am also a volunteer at Abiding Hope here in Madison County. My husband and I have lived in Madison County for the past 8.5 years. One of the things that we love most about this county is their commitment to loving their neighbor. Our county now has an opportunity to love our most vulnerable neighbor, the unborn. The American College of Pediatricians concurs with the body of scientific evidence that human life begins at conception, fertilization. Scientific and medical discoveries over the past 3 decades have only verified and solidified this age-old truth. At the completion of the process of fertilization, the human creature emerges as a whole, genetically distinct, individuated, zygotic, living human organism, a member of the species Homo sapiens, needing only the proper environment in order to grow and develop. The difference between the individual in its adult stage and its zygotic stage is not one of personhood, but of development. Dr. Jerome Lejeune, professor of genetics at the University of Descartes, Paris, discoverer of the chromosome pattern of Down syndrome and a Nobel Prize winner, states, after fertilization has taken place, a new human being has come into being. This is no longer a matter of taste or opinion. It is not a metaphysical contention. It is plain experimental evidence. Based on the evidence presented in this abstract and by Dr. Lejeune, it is clear that a unique life with inherent value is created at conception. Therefore, we must do everything in our power to protect that life. Jimmy Carter once said, "The measure of a society is found in how they treat their weakest and most helpless citizens." That is why the heartbeat resolution is vital to our community. Currently, every single day in America, 2,363 helpless babies are killed by abortion. That is equivalent of nearly 30 school buses full of children. In North Carolina, there are 82 helpless babies killed every day. That is more than a bus full of our children. While this heartbeat resolution will not end abortion, if we can protect just one life, we are fulfilling our duty to our children and the future generations of Madison County. If we protect just one life, we uphold our conviction to love and protect our neighbor. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Jim Good.
Thank you. I'm Jim Good from Mars Hill, and I'll keep this pretty short. Thank you for withdrawing the resolution, item 8, very much so. As we know, that resolution would have done nothing to prevent any abortions in this county. It was toothless. It would provided no money for family planning services that would help people make decisions and then get the help they needed to prevent unwanted pregnancies, and would provide no money for child care services to help a single mother who had to raise a child. As we all know, this is very, very divisive. And we want to see our county united. We're all together in this. And right before Christmas, it was the wrong time to bring up a resolution like this to try to make us fight among ourselves. We're all friends and we're all neighbors, and I hope we can carry on that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Angel Hyman.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the Madison County Board of Commissioners. I know most of you, and for the record, my name is Angel Howland, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening and for each of your service. I'm currently serving as the Executive Director of Abiding Hope located in Mars Hill. We are a pregnancy and family resource center that we serve all of Madison and the North Montgomery area. We provide free and confidential resources to women and their families, such as pregnancy tests, limited OB ultrasounds, which, as far as I know, we're the only OB ultrasound in the county. We also have a mother-baby closet. We have parenting classes, grief counseling for parents who have suffered or experienced the loss of a baby, abortion recovery services, and options counseling, as well as support. We do a lot of talking and listening, and resources for housing, food, and living assistance for moms and their families. Tonight, you are being asked to consider the importance and severity of the heartbeat bill resolution on behalf of Madison County. I would like to ask you to consider a few things when you're considering signing this resolution. The first thing is 3 lives. That is what is involved when we discuss abortion. One of the biggest statements that is said today, supposedly on behalf of women, is that it's my body, my choice, it's my life. Yet, it's actually 3 lives, 2 bodies, 3 lives. There's never one life that's just being affected. In any decision to abort a pregnancy, 3 lives are always affected. Why in conversations regarding abortion and pregnancy are the baby and the father so often left out? In no pregnancy situation can you have any without the other. Many of us are here tonight on behalf of the unborn to share their voice and to speak for them and what would be their choice. If you were to ask most any baby, if you could, I'm sure they would never choose abortion. However, they're also not asked to be created, to exist, or how the conditions are to be for them to come into existence. They truly are innocent. In our country, it's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. Why does this not apply to the unborn? Abortion takes the life of an innocent child, period. The argument of it's just a clump of cells, not yet human, it's not really a heartbeat, those have all become quite lame and irrelevant due to the advancements of our technology. We know that when a human sperm meets a human egg, it can only become a human being. It's not a dog, it's not a cat, it's not anything but a human. Therefore, it's always human, and the presence of cardiac activity means life. And I want to add one thing, that's what we consider life, is heart and the heartbeat. The brain, you can be brain dead and still be considered alive. That's why we discuss the heart. The advancements in our technology show us that, and without a shadow of a doubt, we see that through ultrasound. I have personally seen cardiac activity as soon as 5 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next up, Barbara Zimmerman.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Barbara Zimmerman. I live in the Revere community of the Laurel section of the county. I'm involved in quite a few volunteer things. My big deal is litter in the county, cleaning up litter, cleaning up trash dumps. The other thing that I'm involved in is the Laurel Community Center. And we at the Laurel Community Center, we are a nonprofit organization, and we strive to build community in our part of the county. We discriminate against no one. We welcome everyone. We are trying to bring people together. We do not discuss controversial issues. We do not discriminate against people based on politics, based on religion, based on race, based on married, unmarried, gender preference. We just don't discriminate. And we're very proud of that, and we have to be that way in order to be a nonprofit organization and get grants and money to keep our programs going. So, in light of that, I was going to speak about the proposition that is no longer on the agenda, so I don't have much to say on that. But I did bring a couple of newsletters so that you could share and see what we're doing over at the Laurel Community Center. We are very grateful for the support that the commissioners have given us in our efforts with that community center. It's meant so much to us, and at some point we want to have an open house where you all can come and see what we're doing over there. I have one more thing to say, and I am grateful that you removed that item from the agenda. I think it is divisive. I think that it is not appropriate county business. I think that it just sets us up for controversy and division in this county when we have so much important business to take care of that you as commissioners are elected to do. So I appreciate that. I do think that unwanted pregnancy is an issue, and I think that, you know, in the past it's always been about the woman. What is the woman going to do? The woman has to take the birth control. The woman has to be responsible for going through a pregnancy, giving birth, you know, having issues after birth. I just think that if men are really concerned about unwanted pregnancies, that men need to start addressing that issue amongst themselves as men, what they need to do to prevent unwanted pregnancies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Jesse Davis.
Thank you all for the opportunity. My speech has changed a little bit. Thank you for your leadership for striking that from the agenda. Women do deserve better. Women do deserve choice, period. Thank you.
Next up is Walter Ponder. Walter Ponder.
Gentlemen, my name is Walter Ponder. I was a pastor for 30 years, 20 years in this association. My wife and I then moved to Brazil as missionaries for 15 years. We've been back now for 2 years, and I am the director of missions for the French Broad Baptist Association. Everyone here would expect me as a pastor to oppose abortion, and rightfully so. But I do not oppose abortion because I'm a pastor. I've been around a long time. I remember the first time I heard the word abortion. I was just a boy, long before Roe versus Wade. And I didn't know what it meant. And I asked somebody, and they told me what it was. I thought they were kidding. I couldn't believe what they said. That's been about 60 years, and I still can't believe it. If this night or any night, any elected official anywhere speaks up about this resolution and adopts it, it's my conviction that the vast majority of the people in that or any county would stand with them.
Amen.
We live in strange times. All of you know that. We do. We live in a day that any woman sitting here, any woman can walk down a road with a little dog and I could kick that dog that's expecting a puppy. And if that puppy dies, I'm going to get fined or maybe go to jail. But at the same time, any woman here can speak to a doctor and say, take my child's life. There's no fine. Nobody goes to jail.
Amen.
God forgive us
Yes,
for what we become
please.
in America. May God forgive us. Thank you for you.
Amen. Appreciate it.
Next up, Laura Coates.
Good evening. My name is Laura Coates. I am the homeschooling mother of 4 precious children that God gave our family. Life is a beautiful thing, and there is no doubt that from day one, when a woman is expecting, she is carrying a new life, a special bundle of joy and love that comes from heaven. We have a 9-year-old son named Carson. When I was expecting him, we had a routine ultrasound, and they found some things that were not quite right. He had a hole in his heart and his brain. They called me and my husband into an office for a special appointment. When we walked into that room, there was a small round table with 3 chairs. The medical personnel and my husband and I sat down at the table. She proceeded to pull out some papers out of her briefcase and talk to us about what might be wrong with our son. She then asked us if we would like to consider our options. Obviously, these options included terminating the life of our unborn baby boy, who they were certain had trisomy 18, a severe form of Down syndrome. Thankfully, without a fleeting thought, we assured the medical personnel immediately that there was only one option, and that is life. At our next ultrasound, he was perfect. Both holes were gone. In the March of the next year, our son Carson was born. He is now an active 4th grader and plays baseball in the spring. He has no health problems. The determination of who deserves to live and die should not be in the hands of a biased professional or a healthcare system that often makes mistakes. God creates life. We accept what God gives us, and we choose to raise our children in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. Please choose life. Please reconsider passing this resolution.
Amen.
Thank you. That's at the end, so if Brian Coach and Richard Lawler want to speak, they'll have to wait till the end of the meeting. Okay? Next up on the agenda is where we appoint chair, vice chair, county attorney, county clerk. So I'll open the floor for Coach Donnie. Go ahead, Mr. Donnie.
Members of the board, as you know, at your meeting in December, in each odd numbered year, you will do a form of organization of the board in that you have to have an election to appoint your chairman and your vice chairman, just as in each even numbered year after the election, you have to have an organization of the board also. So since this is your regular December meeting, per statute, you have to have the organization, which requires the appointment, either the reappointment of your existing chairman or an election for a new chairman. So at this time, I would open the floor for nominations for the position of chairman of the Madison County Board of Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, in 2013, Matt Wexler, who sits on this board, was appointed to represent the Madison County citizens on the Pigeon River. Fund Board. He served there since 2013. In 2015, he was elected to fill the slot of then County Commissioner Jim Baker as County Commissioner, and that's when he started his tenure as County Commissioner. 2016, he was re-elected into that position, and he was the top vote getter in the county. 2016, he took on the responsibility of serving on the Madison County Health Board, which he still serves on. 2016, he also took on the responsibility of the Land and Sky Regional Council Board as a delegate, and he was elected to that executive committee in 2021. In 2016, he was selected to serve on the Madison County Transportation Authority Board, and he served faithful in that position since that time. In 2016, he was part of the French Broad River Metropolitan Planning Organization, and he's been a part of that since then. 2016, he began as part of the Land to Sky Rural Planning Organization, and he was actually elected chairman in 2020. In 2017, he was Madison County Economic Development Board, and he still serves on that board. 2020, he was reelected for the second time as a county commissioner, and he was the second highest vote getter. 2021, he worked to secure over $20 million in earmarked funds for projects in Madison County with the newly passed budget. Matt has faithfully served this board and this county since 2013. He's exemplified leadership in all those aspects and a commitment to the overall goals, but he's never, ever been given the opportunity to serve in the leadership role of this commission board. And based on those things, I make a motion that we select Matthew Wechtel as the chairman of the Madison County Board of Commissioners.
Are there any other nominations?
I nominate Mark Stelson.
Make a motion, we close the nominations for chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by raising your right hand.
Favor of.
Closing the nominations. Nominations are closed. We have two nominees. You're entitled to one vote. All those in favor of Matt Wechtel as chairman, please raise your right hand. Madam Clerk, there are two votes for. All those in favor of Mark Snelson, please raise your right hand. Three votes for. Mr. Snelson, you will be the chair for the coming year, and I'll turn the meeting over to you at this time.
We, at this time, need to elect the vice chair. Got the floor open. Nominate Craig Goforth as vice chair. Second.
Second.
Discussion.
Any
Any other nominations? All in favor?
We need to close first. We need to close nominations first.
Okay. Nominations for close. Second. All in favor? All right. Nominate Craig.
So we did that, we just now need to vote.
You make a nomination?
Well, so
Second.
all those in favor. Johnny?
Yeah, all those in favor of Mark Snelson as vice chairman signify.
Craig.
Oh, I'm
Craig.
sorry. You've already got chairman. I can't give you both of them, can
You know,
All those in favor of Craig Goforth signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed? Madam Clerk.
All right, next on the agenda is appointment of the county attorney. We just make a motion, Donnie, or do we have to open it up? You're the only attorney here.
Please not, but
Well,
I would
for the
I make a
position.
motion that Donnie Laws be retained as county attorney.
Second. I'll second. All in favor? Yes, all right. Next, appointment of clerk.
Mr. Chair, I move that we retain Mandy Bradley as county clerk.
Second that. Discussion, all in favor? So,
The meeting schedule.
Approval of the 2022 board meeting schedule. So it's up here on the board. Did we? No, we didn't change that because of the election.
We didn't need to.
We didn't need to after the court ruling.
So it will be here all next year on the second Tuesday of each month at 7 o'clock, unless there's some kind of special meeting for me. Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Next on the agenda, this is our attorney Harold Siegel, and he is going to speak to us about the opioid litigation. There was some question in the last meeting on, well, you explain, Harold, because I'll just butcher it up. So if you want to come up, and you'll have to speak close to my people on the internet.
Mr. Chairman, if I could introduce Mr.
You
Siegel
go right
for the
ahead.
purposes of folks here. This is Harold Siegel. He is a preeminent plaintiff's attorney in North Carolina and is throughout the country. He is one of the attorneys who has been representing local governments in the national opioid lawsuit. You've probably read about it or heard about it in the news. There's been a recent proposed settlement wherein the 4 major distributors of opiates throughout the country, there's a proposed settlement where they will pay approximately $26 billion in order to settle a portion of the lawsuit. Madison County, since the very beginning, has hired Mr. Siegel, and he also represents other local governments in North Carolina to file the lawsuit on their behalf. He has been involved with the litigation with other attorneys. He was one of the attorneys who helped cause this lawsuit to be settled. In the near future, Madison County will be receiving a good amount of money from that settlement, which will be used to remediate the opioid epidemic. At last month's meeting, there were some questions through a presentation by the health department and Tammy Cody as to how we would be implementing this and where the money would be coming from and maybe when we would be receiving it. So the commissioners asked Mr. Siegel to be here tonight to go through how we got where we are and to answer any questions that any of y'all may have of him regarding that settlement. So, Mr. Siegel, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Donnie. And I'm really glad to be here. Madison County is more like home than home to me. This is the sort of place I grew up, and I love it here. And it is a great joy to represent you folks. And as Donnie says, we're now at a place after 4 years. And it's hard to believe that we've been in this fight for 4 years, and now we have 4 of the defendants, and there's a list of defendants about this long. 4 of them have agreed to settle, and that's where the $26 billion came from.
Can everybody hear it?
Not very well.
If you want to go around
or
and
you
talk
can,
to,
yeah.
I'm soft-spoken anyway. That's a disability for a lawyer. I'm sorry for that. But I'll try to overcome it. I've had judges ask me to speak up, and I've had judges ask me to be quiet. So I understand the problems. If I could give you just an overview, a worldview of what this litigation is about and how special it is. This is now the biggest civil action in history. There's never been anything like it. We are dealing with a problem that is probably, it's one of the most significant destructive epidemics in our country's history. with the combination of the overdose deaths and the opioid epidemic that we've had before, the problems related to COVID have made it much worse because of all the things that go along with the COVID, the confinement, and all the other disabilities we're facing. But I just learned last night that in the past 12 months, we've lost over 100,000 people have died as a result of overdose deaths. That's about 30,000 more than it's been averaging per year. And for the first time, we are starting to see a change. And I want to say that because what you folks have done in Madison County is a part of one of the most significant legal judicial efforts I've ever seen. In one of the most serious epidemics we've ever dealt with, a very small group of local governments. We represent a small group, and at last count, 15 sovereign Indian nations. This group of small local governments, of people like the people that I love, the people that we're close to, the people that mow their own grass, they grow their own tomatoes. They're not running for office at state and national level, they're running governments. And you folks are the ones who have suffered the harm. You're the ones who have seen the harm in foster care, in the judicial system, in emergency care, in prenatal substance abuse or withdrawal syndrome. There's so many things that you've had to deal with. And nothing at any level of government has ever been able to change the tide, to stem the tide and to change the direction, but this case is doing it. And it's because of people like the people in this community, your commissioners and you. You have stood up to make something happen, and it is making a difference. A $26 billion settlement from 4 of the defendants is going to make a big difference. It'll be something over 1.5 million coming to Madison County, and then there's some money going to Hot Springs and Marshall and Mars Hill. But in the big picture, this is just a part of it. After this settlement, as we work on this settlement, and I want to talk about that specifically, but just to give you an idea of the magnitude of the case, this settlement is with 4 of the defendants. There are pharmacy defendants that we just started trying against. We just tried the first trial against pharmacy defendants. It just finished in the Northern District of Ohio the end of November. In that case, we don't know the amount yet, but we know that the jury in the Northern District of Ohio, in a test case, it's a bellwether case, they have found liability on the part of the pharmacy chains with Walmart, CVS, Great Eagle, and Walgreens. That just came in. We do not know the amount of the verdict. It's only for 2 counties, but it's a test case. That is where we started in the Northern District of Ohio with the distributors, and that's where the $26 billion settlement nationwide came from. The reason the numbers are so large is because when we started the lawsuits, the defendants did not want to settle unless they could buy their peace. They wanted to settle with everyone. They didn't want to settle with 3,000 governments, and there's 30,000 governments in the United States. So the court permitted us to negotiate on behalf of everybody. So these settlements are nationwide. It's not what you have caused to happen. You're getting money, but every other county in the country is getting money. And every city of substance in the United States is getting money to use on opioid, on the remediation of these problems. So to come back to the focal point of tonight, the reason we wanted to spend some time to explain this is because in the distribution of the money, there have been problems in the past between local governments and the state governments and the national government when cases like this have been tried and resolved. If you recall the tobacco cases, there was it's called the Gold Leaf Fund. The money that came from the tobacco litigation went substantially into state revenue. It went into the general fund, and it did not get to where it belonged. We knew it was critically important that the money that comes from these cases goes to the local government, so the local government has the power to control it and has the power to make the decisions in your community about what's going to be done. In order to do that, we, as your attorneys, talked with and worked with the North Carolina County Commissioners Association. And they, because they have contact with all of the counties, litigating and non-litigating, all the counties are not litigating. They have contact and relationships with all counties. So we asked them to please help us to work with the Department of Justice to work out an arrangement so the local governments would have control of the money that is being produced from the lawsuits so you can use it in your communities. And so you could make the decisions. The agreement that came from that is called a memorandum of agreement, oddly enough. That is what was negotiated at our request between the Association, the County Commissioners Association, and the Department of Justice. That ended up with the end result will be local governments, Madison County, is going to have control of 85% of that recovery. The state will have control of 15%. So that memorandum of agreement is a very important, very good document. It was really well done, and it is very effective. It's one of the best in the country. It's a model. It's great. We love it. There were some things in the memorandum of agreement that created some issues for counties and cities that we represent and for the Indian nations. And those problems related to the way the attorney's fees would be paid and whether they may end up being paid from general funds coming into the government, into Madison County, not from the funds being recovered by the lawsuit. That was an issue that we were concerned about. We were concerned about the risk to our clients, so that there was a delay in the approval of that memorandum of agreement. There was never a problem with the actual orchestration of the distribution of the money and the way the money would be spent. It's a great agreement. There was never a problem with that. There were just some technical things about the agreement and the risk that it put on local governments for where the money would come from to pay the attorney's fees. That's been resolved. We've reached an agreement with the Department of Justice. They've, Swain Wood, the Chief of Staff for the Attorney General for Josh Stein, has written a letter explaining and taking and announcing that their position is that we are fine, that no money will come from the governments to pay attorney's fees. It will have to come from money that's recovered, and you can pay the attorney's fees from that money. So there were a number of things about it that needed to be fine-tuned, needed to be negotiated. We're now in talks with the Department of Justice, and we're comfortable that all that is in hand. So the memorandum of agreement is fine. We see no reason for anyone not to sign it at this point. And whether it's signed or not, we're bound by it. Madison County is bound by the memorandum of agreement. It is the way the money is to be distributed. Now, as far as, Donnie's told me about some other funding that was coming in from other grants that would help facilitate the distribution of the funds and the allocation of the funds that come into Madison County. There are guidelines in the memorandum of agreement, which, it's not a very long document and it's available online. There are provisions in there that provide what the money can be spent for. It is regulated. It is designed to control the spending of the money for remediation of the problems related to the opioid epidemic. All commonsensical, all good, and some very good guidelines, and all the help we can get, and the North Carolina County Commissioners Association will offer assistance as well. There's lots of help to determine how the money is to be spent, and that document is fine. There's no problem with any of that. We're well underway. We now believe that the first payments coming in from the settlement with the distributors, the $26 billion we're talking about, we believe the first payments will come in mid-2022, probably in June, and they'll come in annually. This will pay out over a period of 18 years. And this settlement is for 4 defendants. The case we just got the verdict in the Northern District of Ohio, it's 4 more defendants. There's still more defendants. We don't know how much that will produce, and there's no national settlement in that case yet. That's just one test case that the jury found liability. So we're making great progress. It's a long, hard drive, but we're making great progress. We feel blessed that we found the success we have. We're happy about it, and being able to be a part of something where folks like Madison County and these commissioners can actually go into a court and do things that make a difference in the way we live and the way we recover. It's a wonderful thing, and I could not be more proud than to be representing you folks and these commissioners. It's an honor, and it's a privilege to be able to work with folks who actually had the courage to step into the street and take on the biggest companies on the planet, who can afford and who do afford armies of lawyers. It's a hard fight, but it is going remarkably well. Lord's blessing us, and there may be questions. It would take long. I could spend days talking about all the things that are going on with this, but we certainly don't want to do that. So I'll take questions. If you have questions, commissioners have questions. Yes.
Will there be an option for public input into how the monies are spent in the county?
Oh, sure.
And how do you see that? How's that going to look, do you think? Is that something the commissioners are going to set up? Are we going to ask our health department to run that?
That is up to you. That is up to the commissioners. There's no, there are not just recommendations, there are categories of spending that are permissible under the settlement agreement and under the memorandum of agreement. And within those confines, you can do whatever you like. It can be controlled however you like. The commissioners will be the primary ones to make the decisions, of course, but they can bring in anyone they want to bring in to be a part of it. They can seek input and assistance from the state association, and they have an active interest. There's any number of ways to do it. And if you look at the memorandum of agreement, it has some guidelines. It has very specific and very useful ways to orchestrate the spending of the money.
And the county has signed that.
Well, they haven't signed it yet, but they're bound by it, and they can sign it. I mean, we believe there's no, we do not believe there's any significant impediment to signing that now. And as far as the spending of the money, there has never been a problem with that. It was just technicalities.
If I might interject, just to answer that question a little more specifically, Tammy with the health department was kind enough to do a presentation in her last board work session that gave basically two tier options, and under those tier options, it gives you certain things that would be the focus of the allocation of those funds over 18 years. Maybe at some point when we get a little closer along, she'll be able to represent in a very condensed fashion some of that information, but the health department is way ahead of the curve on giving the recommendations on how to allocate those funds. And go ahead, Tammy.
to stay active.
Any other questions?
Harold, thank you again. Without you and your peers' representation, this would have never come to pass. And thank you again for taking time to come and visit us in Madison County this evening. We look forward to seeing you soon.
I'll be
Safe
back.
travels.
Always glad to come.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, sir.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
This needs to be ready.
That's the standard resolution.
Okay.
To authorize us to now execute the MOA.
We need a motion, all right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So y'all have a copy of this, correct?
We do. Yes.
So we need a motion for resolution by the county of Madison approving the MOA between the state, North Carolina, and local governments on proceeding related to the settlement of the opioid.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Next on the agenda is Chris Watson, Community Housing Coalition Director.
Evening, gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with you all this evening. I won't spend too much time going over what's in your packet, but I just wanted to hit the highlights of what we've done this year in our work to meet the housing needs of our most vulnerable residents here in Madison County. We're still kind of recovering from the impact on our volunteer repair programs from the pandemic, but we were able to come back and have a strong summer mission program this summer, and local volunteering activity is back on the rise. People are eager to get out of their home, help their neighbors, and get back involved in the community. We've also getting ready to launch some key initiatives, including a housing replacement program that I spoke to you all a couple of months ago that's funded partially through home funding, as well as we were just picked to be a human services organization under the North Carolina Healthy Opportunities Pilot Program, which will allow us to bill Medicaid for housing repairs that will improve the health of children in Madison County primarily. And then our store, which we opened 2.5 years ago, Reclaim Madison, continues to do really well. And we've created the equivalent of 3 full-time living wage certified jobs. We've also eliminated tons of waste from going to the landfill, hopefully reducing landfill costs for folks. All that said, we're really looking forward to 2022. Next year, CHC will celebrate 20 years of being a community nonprofit here in Madison County, assisting the residents. And our programs are going to continue to grow to meet the expanding housing needs and the affordable housing crisis in the community. We're launching our housing replacement program to better assist our elderly and disabled clients whose homes are beyond repair so that they can continue to age in place in their communities. Again, we're going to be involved in the Healthy Opportunities Pilot, which launches, I think, as early as next month. We're continuing to work with the Givens communities. I know Teresa came and talked to you all about trying to get a senior housing facility here in Madison County. Huge need that we have. Our volunteer programs are rebounding really nicely from the pandemic, and we look to be back at full strength by next summer. And then we're continuing to provide a place for everyone to shop for gently used furniture, appliances, and building materials. All of our work provides our community with vital services, bringing over $1.3 million in economic activity to support our local economy and provide good jobs. And this growth in programs that we're seeing and that we're going to experience next year is driving our move to a permanent location, what we're calling in our campaign is a home for housing. We've rented our properties for 20 years now, and it's time for CHC to take a step and find a permanent house for our offices, our retail space, somewhere we can invest in housing in the community. In mid-January, we will close on a building at 798 Walnut Creek Road. It's currently the Cinco de Mayo restaurant. We are remodeling the building and will be open to the public late March, beginning of April. This acquisition is going to be funded through grants. We've secured some grants. We've got a few pending. We have pre-approved financing. We've got some cash on hand in our accounts, and we're seeking generous financial support from individuals, businesses, and organizations. And a lot of local folks and businesses have already stepped up. While we greatly appreciate the board and Madison County's support during the annual budgeting process, this project had to move really quickly because it is a real estate transaction in this market. And I'm here to make a direct appeal for a financial investment from Madison County within the next month or two to help us get across the finish line on our capital campaign. If you have any questions, if you want to make a donation, or if there's someone you know who has a housing assistance need, please, my cell phone number is listed at the top of the memorandum to you all, and please don't hesitate to reach out.
How much money are you short, Chris?
Right now, we're halfway to our goal. We're trying to raise $100,000, and we're at about $50,000 right now.
Chris, thank you.
I have one question. Has there been anyone approach you or any discussion regarding renovation of old houses, abandoned houses, for the purpose of providing free housing allocation for foster parents?
We haven't been approached about that. We're certainly interested in any housing options, especially taking existing resources. I mean, that's kind of what our specialty is, taking the existing resources we have in the county, fixing them up, rehabbing them, so that we can provide safe, healthy housing. But if you know someone who'd like to sit down and talk about that,
sure, I'll get with you.
We would love to.
Awesome, thanks.
Foster care is a huge need in this county.
Thank you for your help again on Greater Ivy.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you, Greg.
Next on the agenda is Lori Ray, our tax administrator, is retiring, and we'd like to give her a plaque for her years of service. How many years would that be, Lori?
Read it into the record.
31, is it not, Laura?
From 91 to 2001. It says, presented to Lori Ray, tax administrator, grateful recognition and appreciation for providing dedicated service, outstanding performance, and extraordinary contribution to Madison County government from 91 to 2021, awarded by the Madison County Board of Commissioners December 14th, 2021. So, Lori? Give us a thing. Come on now. You know, it's been fun.
I love the people of Madison County, and it's been a pleasure working with them. I just love the people, and I'm sure that everything will be just fine after I go. Nobody's irreplaceable, but it's been a good journey, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve the people of Madison.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you.
Roy, I want to say I'm especially grateful because our job is easier because you did your job. When it comes to ensuring that taxes are collected and the tax rate has been going up, the collection rate every year, it gives more revenue stream for everyone. So thank you. I hope you enjoy your retirement.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Laura. Wish you a long and happy retirement.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And don't go away too quick. Remember, you got a part-time agreement with us.
Go, but don't go far.
Next was a moved item, Diana Norton, tax assessor. Front and center. Diana is taking a trip to South Dakota tomorrow, taking some Christmas out to kids. 341, is that right?
300 and something, I'm not
Three-
sure. the
300
exact
something.
number.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm here for the monthly releases and refunds, but I have October and November to be approved.
No discussion.
I read it over, it reads pretty clear. I'll second that after review, yes.
Discussion. All in favor? Lori, thank you again, Diana, everyone else. But you have safe travels, Diana. Thank you and your group for what you are doing. Tell them just a little bit more about what you're really doing, if you don't mind.
As far as,
And who you're going to see and why you're
oh, we're
going
going
to
to
do
the
it.
Pine Ridge Reservation. It's the poorest Indian reservation in the United States. And a lot of people in the county and the Cherokee Indians have, like he said, we sponsored 300 and something kids that we're going to take Christmas to.
Next on the agenda.
Is Tammy.
Fire.
It's you,
Hey,
man.
fire, I'm trying to. All right.
County
Sorry,
fire.
my bifocals and my cataract are working. All right, do we have representatives here from the marshal of the fire department?
I saw Regina and I saw, Josh Norton from Hot Springs.
Josh, come on up, Regina, for just a minute, to the mic, if you would. Hey there.
How you doing, Chief?
If you guys would like to give just a little history to everyone in the room, for which I think many of them may not really understand how long this issue has not been addressed and what the issue is briefly, for the sake of those in the room that do not understand, whichever one of you want to go first. This is very informal, okay?
I actually have somebody with, management solutions for emergency services with me, and he can explain this much better than I can,
Right.
if that's okay.
That is perfectly fine. Make sure to talk into the mic, because otherwise it won't pick up on the screen, okay?
Thank you for letting me come for you. My name is Keith Boss. I'm the owner and CEO of Management Solutions for Emergency Services. What that is I started my fire service career in 1990, so I've done 31 years. I retired young. I started fire chief young, done 13 years, decided to do something different. And so I joined forces with the largest fire department insurance carrier in the country. They insure about 17,000 fire departments. They wanted me to do risk reduction, HR, and stuff like that. But I didn't want to get on a plane on Monday and come home on Fridays. So I kept away from them. They finally offered to financially support it if I just started a company. So I done that in 2012. And at that time, it was just 4 of us. Now there's about 15 retired fire chiefs, state officials in North Carolina alone. We've paired up with, got 2 in-house counsels for legal advice, and then we have 4 outside counsels that we paired up for. And what we do is we are HR, risk reduction, and anything that fire chiefs need, they just call and ask, and we give them the resources they need. We've done county studies, we've done financial studies for fire service for counties, we've done negotiation for service agreements, handled probably our lawyers with VFIS and our outside counsels handled claims you wouldn't believe, be honest with you, because we actually do an annual agreement and we cover around 430 now just in North Carolina alone. We have about 3 counties we work with, helping them with their HR, their stuff. We do probably about 30 or 40 rescue squads. We do about 25 to 30 towns. We do the North Carolina Wildlife Commission. We do North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Colorado, Wisconsin, and we've never advertised a day. It just spreads, but they are what we consider our clients. So that's the reason I'm here, is Regina's a fire chief of ours that does an annual agreement with us. And when I was talking to her and doing a risk reduction, looking at her district, we help with insurance rate and everything like that. One thing we noticed is that she has a portion of her district that is untaxed. There's a portion that she does a service contract with from the town that's through that, their general fund to support that contract. And then there's a portion that actually is an 8 cent tax, I believe, is a rural fire protection district. And then there's a section outside of it that's untaxed. So she asked about how to do that, what's the best ways to actually make that work, because when we look at it, we see 3 different areas, geographical locations, basically receiving the same service from the same entity, but literally neighbors are paying different amounts of tax. So how do we do it? When I'm talking to her, she keeps making comments about doing petitions and actually putting it on ballots and stuff like that. And that triggers a thought process for me that we're talking about doing a rural fire protection district. And we go all over the state because rural fire protection districts is a very outdated and antiquated way to do anything. There's a lot of restrictions. There's a lot of, actually, there are a few of them down just to give you a little brief on some of them. So a rural fire protection district has to start off with a 35% petition. That means somebody's got to walk the street to get a petition. 35% of the free stakeholders in that area, the taxpayers. All right. The problem we see with that is you're probably not going to do it. So you're going to ask the volunteer fire department to do it. And they'll do it. They'll go out and grab that petition and you put it on the ballot. The problem we see is there's an ownership. There's an assumption that if they walk the streets 10 years from now, when they ask for a tax increase and you say no, they're going to want to know why you can tell them what to do with that tax. Because they're going to remember that they walked the street, they got the petition to form their district. Does that make sense? So that's the first thing that's tough. Second thing is it's its own government entity. A rural fire protection district is actually a government entity that you're placing. Now, the danger side of that is in my 10 years of doing this, we've only lost, I had to settle one case. And what we're recognizing is plaintiff attorneys are trying their best to form that relationship, that government relationship, because they want to extend certain rights that only government agencies can or employees of government agencies can use, like the First Amendment at work. And that's what that case out of Iredell County. That attorney tried to say that Lake Norman Fire Department was a government entity because it actually said inside of a rural fire protection district. And they actually won that case. We ended up having to settle it. But that's another one. It's a 15 cents max on taxes in the state of North Carolina. There's a lot of fire departments, a lot of counties that bring us in to look at financial studies because fire departments need to go over that 15 cents. Not saying you're there today, but if you put this in place in 10 years, you may be trying to figure out what to do next. So if we can help you out, we're going to stop you from having to get to that point. A rural fire protection district is very strict on what the funds can be used for fire protection pretty much only, with some EMT side to it. The lawsuit side is we're dealing with. I forgot my glasses at work too. Yeah, they're almost impossible once they're formed to remove them. They're almost impossible to extend them. It's just not a good way to actually put something in place to receive fire funding. Now, North Carolina has a new system that's called a service district. And that service district is simple enough that you can, as commissioners, can actually put this thing in place. You can overlay it. You can bring it up for public comment, and then the next one, you can actually vote on it. So it's pretty simple. It's not a government entity. You're still in control of it and setting the tax rate, but it's not an entity in itself that a plaintiff attorney can try to attach something to get to that nonprofit private entity. It's a 50 cent max in that district, so you got an unlimited amount of funds that you could use that 50 cents. So that it's 50 cents or $1.50 total with general fund. It's a clear divide between the fire department and county, and that's what we work on too. Is we want to make sure that there's no risk in tasks from that rural fire department to the county or vice versa. So that's kind of the way we draw it out to make it work. But I wanted to show you
and give you a little more. So everything in light blue, you can contract with the county or the city in their service agreement, which they pay out of general.
Yeah, come on over a little bit closer if you don't mind.
There you go.
This is the same map that I gave y'all.
Yeah. So there's a funding model here that they pay a certain amount, each citizen there. Then everything in the blue line is that 8 cent rural fire protection district. And then everything on the outside of it is untaxed. So it's not a district.
If you'd be kind enough to walk that over there in front of the camera for just a moment and explain that again to the folks that are online.
All right, so we have one section in the light blue that is taxed by the town under the general fund paid for a service contract. Everything in the light blue, or this blue line, is actually a rural fire protection district that's, I believe, an 8 cent tax. Everything in the red line between the red and the blue is untaxed. So you actually have neighbors here that one person's paying 8 cents, the other one gets free fire. And they're getting the same service from the same entity. Does that make sense? Yeah. But no, if I was a neighbor, I wouldn't be happy paying 8 cents on my neighbor getting free. So it's really how do we make this fair for everybody? Which, in our side, the easiest way to do it is that service district. You literally, you can't, it's really impossible almost to get rid of this rural fire protection district, but you can zero it out, make it zero tax. You can come in here and then overlay a service district over the red line inward. The town could even do it through resolution. They could allow you to actually cover them in that service district through resolution. So if you can get everybody working together, anybody in this district could be paying the same amount of tax for the same service from the same entity. And it's pretty simple. Rural fire protection districts, you can literally have to walk every road to try to get you 35% petition to put it on a ballot. So it becomes very long, drawn-out process. And I think they're wanting to look at funding in July, so the fastest you could get on the ballot would be next November, if you get 35%. There's no downside.
Are you saying this blue part is what you have taxed now?
Inside this blue line is what we get taxes for
Outside
now.
on the red, there you service it as a fire department, you don't get taxed.
No taxes, no revenue.
Okay. I just make sure my head right.
So you can literally have this person paying 8 cents and outside paying nothing. And they're getting it from the same organization, the same district, so it's the same service.
And just to point out too, a good portion of that is between Marshall and the Buncombe County line, which is heavily populated. Now, some of the area is lightly populated, but a good portion of that is actually quite heavily populated. Yes. Now, Josh, step on up because yours is similar.
Mine is.
And also I know the town of Hot Springs because I've talked to Abby, where the town of Hot Springs does the only town that does not have, a county tax. So
Yeah.
add in how this might work with you down in your part of the county.
So we've only looked at it as one way, and we've looked at it at the rural fire protection district, not the service district, as he has said. Outside the city limits of Hot Springs, we get no funding whatsoever. We go to almost Waldrop Road up NC 209. We run multiple wrecks, trees down, all kinds of calls up through there, tractor and trailers that can't read signs. River Road, the same way. And then across Hot Springs Mountain to Griffey Valley to NC 208 at that intersection. So once you get outside the town limits, those town citizens are providing that service. And I catch a lot of static. I try to push back. I can only go so far. I've done this petition once before, about 8 to 10 years ago, and got shut down pretty hard inside one of these meetings. I won't name names, but the commissioner told me to call him at the time, and I called 3 different times, left 3 different messages, never got a response back. So Mr. Gentry here has reached out with the help of Regina Lewis Roberts, our emergency management coordinator, and some other commissioners, and they want to get this resolved. Our budget is minuscule, and with the stressors that we endure from the state to keep these departments running and the cost of equipment, can't do it. I have 24 people on my roster. I'm lucky to get 6 to 8 to show up to do anything.
None of them to pay.
Nobody's paid. So you can imagine the stress that takes on me, my family, and those others that are helping, on top of my 24-hour regular shift that I work in Asheville. So we need to get this voted in. We need to do it the easiest way possible. When I go knocking on the same doors that I've already knocked on, I'm gonna get a strange look. But we also need to work with the county to do some restructuring of our district lines. Because we have an area, and I've provided names to Mr. Wexel, and I don't know if I give them to Mr. Snelson or Gentry, but there's areas where an adjoining district overlays and we access it. But when you pull up the layers on the county tax map, it's a different district, and also on their tax card, that's who they're paying the tax to. It should be coming to us. So we've got to get it resolved, because the days of volunteer with what the state is pushing out isn't far from being over, because people are tired of doing it. There's too much stress.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Well, guys, I appreciate you bringing it to us, and we have talked about this for a long time. We've talked about it internally. I can't speak for the other commissioners, but I think I can too. We have a mission now to fix this. And the reason Lewis is not here tonight, there was an unfortunate assault, shooting on a highway patrol dep officer over in Yancey County. And so Madison County Sheriff's Office, and he's responded to help in Yancey County. We'll be back to you in the next very few days, okay, after we further discuss it among ourselves. But we are committed, and we need to move forward so that we can have this, however we do this, in place for the next budget year.
Can I add that we are the only 2 districts in the county
Oh,
that
yes.
do not have full coverage?
Yes.
So,
But the overlays do affect a few others, and while we're doing it, we need to clean that up. But thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for being persistent, okay? But this is another thing that we can do, we can fix this. It's fair to everybody. That's all we're talking about, is making good coverage, fair coverage for everybody. And that's the way it should be.
Can I say 2 things?
Yes, sir.
So one, I want to make sure the public understands too, that when you tax that other district at 8 cents on 100, you're not talking to $100. But if they can put a substation in that area, you increase protection, but you also can reduce their insurance rate. And if they can get it from a 9 to a 6, they save you 35% on your homeowner's insurance. So that is a huge savings. And you know, as a fire chief, I always try to make sure that I give people free protection. Does that make sense? That my insurance rate was always low enough to give you back more than you give me. So that's what, if you help them, they're gonna help you. The next thing is it's hard to believe somebody you don't know. So I called I got a retired judge and that works with us. I said, Judge, they ain't gonna believe me. I need you to help me with something that they can read. And so he went to digging and found county funding, fire service funding for U.S. North Carolina School of Government.
Hey, good old School of Government.
That's right. If you can believe them, you can call them and talk to them. But I actually read it today, and it's real close, and I agree with everything she said.
Okay.
So here's a few more. But it's about 30 pages, but it'll teach you everything about fire department funding. We just saved you 30 grand.
Virginia,
Thank you.
just a quick question, Chief, to the chief. Do you guys have kind of a tentative recommendation on how to alleviate this problem? I know we've heard options.
That's what they were talking about, getting 35%.
Well, what we need.
Well, I heard the rural fire protection district or the service district.
Service district, 100%. Go away, zero out that rural fire protection district, overlay a service, zero out, the resolution, the rural fire protection district, overlay the service district over the whole map. Talk to the town to see if they'll do a resolution of actually allow it to attach them, and then everybody in that district's paying the same.
Chief, I believe you said that was your preference as well.
I'm gonna tell you that I'm gonna catch some resistance from people outside that do not get that town tax rating yet. Because unfortunately, ours is gonna go up due to the age of some equipment we have and failed service test. So we now only have one truck in Hot Springs that meets state standards. So we're trying to convince the town to finance something, but that's also another mountain to climb. I'll catch some serious heat with other people outside the city limits because they're gonna be looking at it as paying the same rate when they're not getting the same rating on their homeowner's insurance.
Sure. It's a valid point.
That's point.
Thank you.
That's point.
And, I mean, the majority of fire department calls, not fire. I know it says fire, but what, Regina, would you say your fire calls? 10%?
10% fire, and we're right now, our call volume is up to 825, I guess, so far. We'll probably reach 900 before the end of the year.
So where I was going with that is they come out and help EMS because there's no two people on an ambulance that's going to do CPR. It's going to do all this stuff. It's going to get people out of car wrecks and stuff. So don't look at it as they ain't ever come to my house for a fire. They can come to your house for chest pain. They can come to your house for a kid injured or something, or they, stroke. And most of the time, they are the first ones there before we get there. We have 3 trucks, ambulances for the whole county. We got 9 fire departments. So it's important to get them what they need.
How are the others set up, just out of curiosity?
I'm sorry?
How are the others set up?
As far as I know, they just have all of their district is covered with their, whatever the percentage is. Everybody has a different percentage, but this happened years ago, way before I was in the fire service, and I don't know how we got left out of it, but we did, so.
It was first as a 5 or 6 mile radius.
Started out 5.
Started out 5.
Well, it's a valid concern. You got to appreciate what you do, but I also know that if people are being serviced, there should be a fee. It's equitable for them to pay, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank y'all. Next on the agenda is Miss Tammy Cody, Health Director.
Good evening, Tammy.
Hi, Tammy.
So, first off, I'm gonna provide for you tonight the annual Child Fatality Task Team Report. This is an annual report that you get. And so the local Child Fatality Prevention Team, these are 2 types of local teams in North Carolina who review the deaths of children under the age of 18. The purpose of the reviews is to identify system problems, make recommendations for the prevention of future fatalities, and act on these recommendations whenever possible. Local teams consist of representatives of public and non-public agencies in our community that provide services to our children and their families, individuals, and also individuals who represent our community. The CFTF team is a legislative study commission that examines the causes of child death and makes recommendations to the governor and General Assembly on how to reduce child death, prevent child abuse and neglect, and support the safety and well-being of our children. So the annual report is here for you. In 1993, the General Assembly established a network of local child fatality prevention teams across the state to confidentially review medical examiner reports, death certificates, and other records of our deceased children. The purpose of the report is to give a summary of the cause of death, the number of cases reviewed, recommendations for prevention, And so your role will be to hear this report, advocate for system improvements if they're requested, and appoint members to this team. In 2021, the CFPT team reviewed 4 child deaths. It takes us about a year to get all the documentation back. And we identified 6 system problems. The first death that we reviewed, the cause of death was prematurity due to rupture of membranes. This mother had received very appropriate prenatal care. We had no recommendations or no proposed actions. It was just a very tragic situation. The second cause of death was also a very young child, infection in the system due to prematurity. The child had numerous medical conditions due to extreme prematurity. Appropriate services were in place for the mother and the family. No recommendations. The third death was a death from flu type A respiratory infection, and recommendations here, the family had been very involved and had taken the child to the doctor, but our recommendation is to continue to educate parents and CPS, foster care units, our case managers, to remind individuals that anytime a child is not getting better in a short period of time, they need to continue to have direct contact with medical providers. Also, getting flu vaccines is something that should be discussed with trusted medical providers. The final death that we reviewed was a very tragic situation. Cause of death was a suicide, and these reviews are very long and extensive because suicides are always preventable. In this particular situation, it was compounded by the COVID pandemic. As we all know, things shut down initially with COVID, and this child was home alone a lot, and they didn't have that network of their companions and their friends and the school teachers. And for our children, we know when they're in school, it's not just academics, but it's that encouraging word they get from the bus driver, from the lunchroom ladies, from others. And this child, that was all taken away from this child. So we made recommendations that our school personnel are excellent, but we want to continue additional training for them to look for signs of suicide. We can do that through VIA Health, and those recommendations are moving forward. We want to ensure that our health classes continue to provide resiliency skills, especially around stress management. It's hard to be an adult, but it's really hard to be young and peer pressure and things that our children have to endure. We'll work with the School Health Advisory Committee on incorporating mental health education and stress management skills for our students, as well as, we didn't know this previously, but a suggestion that we have is if we ever had to have children out, maybe they're out for medical reasons, whatever reason that they're being taught at home, the school needs to be following up. And if it can't be in person, we need friendly phone calls made to children that are isolated just to check on them and provide those encouraging words. The accomplishments of this team was that we did get our activity summary submitted. We participated in the April Child Abuse Prevention activities to promote awareness of child abuse. Individual reports were made on each of these deaths and forwarded to our state coordinator, and our members had opportunities to participate in online trainings that are offered through the Office of the Medical Examiner. Are there any questions related to the annual report?
This is the second time I've sat through this report.
Okay.
Matt needs a double
I don't
for
have
all
any.
of this.
I don't have any questions.
Not this time. Thank you for that. So, high level, if I may, talk a little bit about the opioid settlement. I know that Matt's got to hear this a dozen times now, and all of you have got to hear this several times. But for our community, I'd like to just provide a little basic information. So in the late 1990s, the pharmaceutical companies reassured the medical community that patients would not become addicted to opioid pain relievers, and healthcare providers began to prescribe them at greater rates. Increased prescription of opioid medications led to widespread misuse of both prescription and non-prescription opioids before it became very clear these medications are highly addictive. We did a training 3 weeks ago at the health department with Dr. Blake Fagan. He oversees the medication-assisted treatment program at Mayheg. And he was telling us and showing some data that a large number of individuals first become addicted to painkillers in their teenage years when they get their wisdom teeth cut out. A lot of times it's not the practice now, but back in the 90s and early 2000s, the surgeon would give you 30 days worth of pain pills. And so 12 hours, the kids take these pain pills and mom keeps on. The dentist said take these twice a day. Here, before you go to school, take your pills. They were following what they thought was best practice. But then we ended up with this terrible epidemic that we see now. The vast majority of folks who have substance use disorder first became addicted by using prescription pain medications. 38 people die every day from overdoses involving prescription opioids. This is a public health crisis, and it has many devastating consequences. There's a significant increase in addiction, destruction of our families, individual and community financial strain, burdens for our jail and law enforcement staff, the overdoses, and the rising incidence of neonatal abstinence syndrome due to opioid use during pregnancy. I've brought many babies home from the hospital that are crying in excruciating pain after being born addicted to substances. This increase in injection drugs has also contributed to the spread of infectious disease, including HIV and hepatitis C. So in Madison County, from 2010 to 2020, there were 278 substantiated child abuse and neglect cases. From 2013 to 2020, there were 1,460 Department of Social Services requests for the health department to provide urine drug screens. 32% of those were positive for an illicit substance. 71% were positive for prescription medications. Unintentional overdoses, there have been 533 from 2009 to 2021, and we know that so many of these are not reported. There's many times that we've made Narcan freely available in our community, and that's a great thing, but a lot of times friends, family, neighbors use the Narcan. EMS may not be called, and even when they are called, a lot of times folks refuse to be transported. So this year, 2021, the United States has already, and this was a month ago, reached over 100,000 overdoses for the year. So this is a terrible problem, and COVID only compounded the problem because people who were in support groups and keeping themselves busy, when COVID hit, all that stopped and it caused the overdoses to increase. So we worked with Mr. Siegel and his firm in 2018 to file. We were one of the original counties to file in the National Opioid Settlement, and we spent many hours trying to document the hardship and the crisis that this epidemic has caused in our community. The financial and emotional cost is impossible to calculate. I would dare say that there's not a night that goes by that there's not a mama who cries herself to sleep wondering where her child is, and there's not children who cry themselves to sleep not wondering where their mama is because of this epidemic. So we will be receiving, as Mr. Siegel stated, $1.5 million for 18 years, and the first 3 years will be more heavily loaded. We don't know what exactly that means. And for our little county, that's a lot of money. But just throwing money at problems without a plan, it's not going to help. We need to invest our money wisely so that we know that we are helping and making a difference. Where it's a lot of money, it can go fast. And so there is a dashboard that will be used. With these monies, all these monies are extremely restricted. The county will have to create a special revenue fund. There'll be audits. A special budget resolution will be passed. We'll need to file financial reports, impact information, and there'll be a minimum of an annual public meeting. So we have made some recommendation on some of the strategies. The commissioners will be looking closely at these and making the final determination on what will be the best use of these funds. But there's 2 tracks, and you can pick and choose. You can choose some from each track, and you don't have to take all the options in a track, and the commissioners have all reviewed these. Some of the things that we have stated that we see a significant need for that are approved for use of these monies is evidence-based addiction treatment. And so currently at our health department, we were the 2nd health department in the entire state to offer a medication-assisted treatment program. And we've been so successful with that. We have 49 active patients. 30 of them are uninsured, and we've been able to write grants because initially most of these individuals don't have jobs. Many don't have relationships with their family, and after we get them in the program, we're able to help them to get jobs and to see their children and be part of their families again. We also would recommend that we look at recovery support services. Currently, Madison County does not have peer support services available. Peer supports can be very beneficial to folks in recovery. They can help with transportation resources, and they relate to the experiences. We would recommend we explore recovery housing support. Madison County, as you heard from Chris, and as we all know, has a housing crisis. It's unaffordable for individuals of lower income, and there's a definite lack of options. So we could use funds to help with that. We would recommend that we look at early intervention programs. Currently, Heather Sharp has programs that's in our school so that we can continue working with our children before these issues lead to addiction. And we've been working to secure free naloxone for years and have been very successful, and we have that in our communities. But once these funds are available, we doubt we'll be able to get naloxone freely, so that would be a good use of some of these funds. Other things to consider would be recovery housing support, such as sober living homes or detox programs. As you know, there's no inpatient treatment options in our county. Support for our residents getting jobs. We have a vicious cycle at our jail of our residents who have substance use disorder, and they steal things to support their habit. And so they end up in the jail, and then they're released, and they go back to that same environment. They end up back in the jail. And so we're not helping our community with what we have going on. But through these funds, we can help support these individuals and help them leave that environment and get a job so they can provide for themselves. Post-overdose response teams. If Madison EMS wanted to create an overdose team, that would certainly be an appropriate use of this money for people who didn't want to be transported to the hospital. Currently, we do have a drug court, and so funds could be used to expand our existing drug court. Could also be used to start a law enforcement assisted diversion program. We would strongly ask the commissioners to consider implementing MAT at our jail. When individuals go through withdrawal, if they've been on Suboxone or have been using prescription or drugs or heroin, it's very painful and it's also very dangerous. And so these funds could be used for that. as well as reentry programs, which would assist individuals to get back on their feet after incarceration and help them maintain their sobriety and navigate the court system. And so, in light of looking at these funds, the health department applied for a grant through Dogwood Health Trust called Saving Lives. We were awarded $173,000 for 2 years to hire a program director. This program director would help look at all these options and, as the commissioners direct, explore outcomes and possibilities. The funds would be used to hire this person along with all their fringe, office supplies, travel, computers, cell phones, etc. This grant was presented to the Board of Health, and the Board of Health has asked unanimously that you support this grant through Dogwood Health to hire this person for 2 years while we're looking at the best use of the settlement money that we have. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, even though you've heard this a couple of times now.
Tammy, thank you very much. And gentlemen, you will also notice as a part of Tammy's presentation, and we discussed this before at our work session, and if there's any questions about that MOU, Donnie, I know that you have reviewed it and that you are fine with that MOU, correct?
Yes, sir.
And if there are no further discussions, I would move that we approve that memorandum of understanding with the Dogwood Health Trust, Unified Madison, for the grant for the health department security.
I'll second. Discussion. All in favor?
All right. Thank you, Tammy.
Next up. Bruce Ledford.
It's me again.
Go again.
The American Rescue Plan Act provides funding to all NC counties and municipalities to address pandemic-related needs. Providing premium pay to essential employees is one of the allowable expenses. I am requesting you approve the attached premium pay policy for the health department employees who selflessly performed essential work and placed themselves on the front line of the pandemic.
I make a motion to do so.
I'll second. Discussion. All in favor?
Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you, Brooke.
Next up, Ms. Carrie Ledford. Finance officer.
Good evening.
Good evening, Carrie.
So, before you, for your approval, is item A, which is budget amendment number 6. This amendment records additional funds received by both your Parks and Recreation Department as well as your Animal Control Department. The Parks and Rec received additional funds from the Community Foundation of Western North Carolina for Barnard Park, and the Animal Control received a donation for a memorial fund in the amount of $15,000. You'll also see the recording of an additional revenue from the recent film project in the amount of $2,500. This has brought the total received by the county to $22,500. See the recording also of the additional revenue generated by the quarter-cent sales tax in the amount of $44,571.02. And these funds will be distributed to the Board of Education pending your approval.
Make a motion. Amend the budget amendment 6. Second. Discussion.
Just as a point of acknowledging the person who is now deceased, but is a memorial of $15,000 to the animal shelter. As far as the name. Sorry,
Nope.
It's
Vergara was her last name. I can't remember her first name. I'm sorry.
Nope, I will find it so that we can put it as record. Rebecca Vergara.
Acknowledge that. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor? Terry?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item B is the financial reports for November. You'll see that we're at 41.95% through our FY '22 budget. On the second page, you'll see that for all funds, we've received 49.16% of our revenues, and our expenses are holding at 28.91%.
Yes, that's good, correct?
Very good.
Very good, yes. Very good.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for a fair report. Thank you. Rest well.
Thank you, Karen.
Next is Mr. Norris.
All right, gentlemen. Got a few updates and then we'll look down into some of the items. We have been officially notified that all 3 of the Golden Leaf projects have moved to the next phase. Very pleased with that. All 3 of those projects are engaged in work to move forward. Mark and I met with the architects yesterday on several things, including the fact that we will now have to help Ag Extension on this project for this building. And clearly, even though a lot of work has been done at Spring Creek Community Center, it now goes to the next level. But both of those buildings belong to all of us, so any investment that we make there is for all of us. There will be no additional requirements for the school system project. They're all in very good shape. Now, I don't know where it goes from here. Generally speaking, if you make it to the second round, it's an awfully good omen. Dr. Lord did come to visit Ag Extension here, the director of Golden Leaf himself, before the first round, but we will see how we go. And the other 2 projects, if they are not funded, will have all the mechanisms in place to go after other funding. As it's known, they'll have a product. So I think a lot of work by an awful lot of people. I'm very happy with that. We are moving forward with some planning for the Veterans Park that we have discussed previously. That was again part of the meeting yesterday with our architects. And the school board last night, if you've not already heard, did move forward with the architects for the work at the football field and the stadium, which was funded in the state monies. That will be moving forward very quickly. And the architects actually gave me and Mark an update on that yesterday because they thought that the school board would move forward. I talked to Will and Karen both today, and the school system is going to be moving forward. Part of that money, which came from the state, is $2.5 million specifically dedicated to rebuilding the football stadium. Now, clearly, they could have used some more money, but it's going to do a really good job. And thanks to everybody involved in that, because that's funds that came from the state that the local taxpayers don't have to pay for.
For the record, that's what they asked for.
That is what they
got. What they asked for. They asked for $2.5 million. We got them $2.5 million.
And they did. Yeah. And it goes a huge long way. We are continuing for the removal of the old house at the Greater Ivy, aka Beach Glen Community Center. And hopefully that process will begin just after the holidays. The winter time is the best time to take that down. We've gotten 2 bids so far. I'm looking for a third. We're supposed to have 3. And it's not going to be terribly inexpensive, but it may not be as bad as we think, and it'll be a complete removal from the site and any contamination and meet all those bells and whistles. We will be bringing to you at the January meeting a formal proposal for 1 more solid waste roll-off truck. We've talked about that somewhat during the year. When we put that order in, it almost certainly will not arrive in this fiscal year. It may be October, November before we get it. We got a couple of different processes to proceed to get that vehicle, and I'll work with Donnie. But in order to get it at a reasonable period of time, we're going to move forward with that. And so that's where we are. The modest renovations to expand the environmental health workspace in the old Ingalls probably will be finished tonight, and that move will take place right after the first of the year. I have met with Sarah Nichols, and Matt and I have been working on economic development For the moment, we'll move to free office space, which is at Long Branch in the community center. It's actually a really nice space over there. And as we move forward with how we reorganize all of that, when we get some new individuals here, we'll look at some possibly other things, but DSS has moved over that space and allowed us really a quite nice workspace up on Long Branch. The only other sort of kind of not too good news in my report, looking at just the preliminary numbers, and we know these are very preliminary, the cost of living is really beginning to hit government as well as all of us. Everything from Duke Energy going up, and Prince Brown's about to get hit, that's another hit. It's probably going to be almost a universal across the board 6 to 9% functional increase cost in government from last year's budget. Some will be less, some will be more. And that's something that as we start moving forward and looking at budget very quickly, it has a right in our face implication. The board had asked for Brooke and I to do some homework relative to some options for maintenance in terms of salaries, and also to take a look at possibly going, and I've talked again with Donnie today about contracts for mowing. And when we go back to personnel session after our regular meeting, we'll talk a little bit more. We've identified with Jesse's help 15 locations that maintenance currently mows. And that does not include counting the convenience centers 15 times. That's 10 more if you count all the convenience centers. So that's actually 24 mowing locations that the county mows. So there's a lot of wiggle room in there about what we do and how we might contract that out. All right. The next item, and you've got this information, has to do with a parcel count as it relates to our continuing discussions on solid waste assessment options.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Before we get into that, my bladder has reached maximum capacity. May we take a 5-minute recess?
Yes, sir. And if I can be right behind you, I'll vote on that.
All right.
Yes, sir.
I move that we go to take a 5-minute recess.
Second, all in favor? Thank you, man. As we work forward on, my little book here says solid waste. Gentlemen of the board had requested, and the tax office and Jeff Hyder have provided, and this is a very detailed chart. Unfortunately, at this scale, you have to take your glasses off if you're me to see the categories, but what this does, this represents data on 10,452 parcels that were billed for a crash card in the last cycle. And that also included the 230 parcels that were, for some reason, legitimately exempt. It also, there were 8,345 parcels that have no structures. So therefore, they were not billed with any crash cards, but they're reflected in the total parcels that you see here that are distributed. And without blowing through the numbers, they're here for your analysis as we continue to move forward with our future discussions. And if anyone wants to know any specific, because of the restrictions on providing of names, obviously, on some of these, but those are all a matter of public records, so you could go to the tax office, for example, and find the second category from the bottom who those 15 actually are. Now, one of the very obvious things that Jeff and I discussed when we looked at it is this reflects a reality that we have here that's hard for some people to get our heads around. For the most part, our property is on the tax books for a whole lot less than what people sell it for, even after the reevaluation. And therefore, that's why you see such a small number at the bottom of the list and the top of the money chain. Also, that last 59, which is a large number, does represent First Part Electric, Norfolk Southern, and Duke Energy, which are obviously big boxes. And those are all set by the State Utilities Commission. We don't set those. And the numbers were generated on the current $2 million that comes from the current tax card system, and how we would, if you did something like this, how that would spread out. Jeff will be more than happy to come to a work session in the future or whatever, and do further analysis. After you've looked at this, if you have any other things that you would like for him, tax office, or for the finance office to provide, any sort of statistics, we're more than happy, and there are a lot of data in there that we can pull out.
Arch, one of the things I had requested in the list, I'd still like to have that, is the numeric number of folks that get the elderly senior citizen discount.
You're talking about the existing property discount. Yeah, and he's also going to give us a number for the people who are in the land conservancy, where you've already put your farmland in, and he will have those numbers for us.
So that, are you talking about like if somebody, elderly person makes 34,000 or less, they get a tax break?
We're talking about the people.
So they could have 100 acres and just make 34,000, and it goes off of what they make, not what they own, correct?
It has an income window to it, but also we have some pieces of property in the county that are actually in the conservancy, where you can park that property and put it into, basically never be developed, and you get a huge tax break for that.
And ironically, some of the people in that program are the ones that come in here and advocate for higher taxes too. So that's true. I always find that amusing.
Okay, now, with those two exceptions, Michael, is there anything else you can think of right now else?
Those numbers are good.
Okay. And I'll pass that on. Jeff's he's probably going to light up here in a minute. He watches these meetings religiously. And so, okay. Any other questions on this data as we move forward? All right. Surplus property. You will find that we have, and I might call Mandy here if I have any questions. She's given us good information. And you find before you 3 different bids on different pieces of property. So, gentlemen, what is the pleasure of the board?
Are these the properties that we were gonna combine as one? I've looked at, you know, it's that Chapel District.
No, they're not. Mandy said no.
No.
Those were specific to the Wolf Laurel area. And we have combined those, correct, Mandy? So it's advertised as one, those are advertised as one piece.
Yeah, that's why I was making sure of.
Yeah.
Because this looked like some of this was at Chapel as well.
It is.
It is.
Yes, it is. But these were kind of outliers. They weren't able to be bundled with the other lots.
Basically, somebody's offering us $1,100 for 3 lots.
No,
1,100 for one.
One's, what's it, 5,000, 4 is what the tax appraisal on it, so that's not bad.
Yeah.
well, and I think on that one, the amount of taxes owed was around 26, was it not? 2,600?
Yeah. And it has a tax value of 5,000.
So that's pretty much in line based on tax value.
I out of the 3 that we got, I think that's the fairest one.
Agreed.
And if we accept this bid, Donnie, correct me if I'm wrong, this just begins the upset bid process, correct?
Always just begins the upset bid process.
And at that point, once, just to refresh my fellow commissioners' memory and also the public, what happens is then once we start the upset bid, if we accept this bid, that starts the upset bid process. If there are no upset bids, we still have the ability to reject the initial bid at that time, or we can accept that initial bid and be done with it.
Yes, sir. You can, even if it does go through the upset bid process and you end up with the highest bidder, at that time, you can still elect, depending on what the bid is, whether it's the original or whether it's an elevated bid after the upset bid period, you can look at that number. If you don't like it, you can reject it.
Okay.
So with that being said, on bid number 1, I would move that we accept the bid and begin the upset bid
I'll
process.
second that. Discussion.
And likewise, I would recommend that we do not accept 2 or 3 unless we want to make some sort of a counter offer. I think those are too low, gentlemen.
Yeah, the taxes were minimal on those.
Yeah, but their
The
property
prices.
values are estimated to be higher.
That's what I'm saying. What they're offering is not sufficient.
Yeah, I will second, your motion is to reject bid 2 and bid 3? Norris?
Correct, sir.
I'll second that.
Discussion. All in favor?
All right, now to the part of this that I always manage to get lost in. I was laughing with Mandy about that today. I have some real difficulty with an obvious piece of paperwork. So we're going to walk down through it. There are a couple in here that we need to refresh our memory on. One has to do with the library board. When we did this period back, and I confirmed this with Donnie today, we gave the library board of trustees the authority to appoint their own people. And they have recommended to us that we appoint Anna Yount from Spring Creek to the library board of trustees. That recommendation was made by on behalf of the library board by Kim Bellafato.
I make a motion to do so.
Second.
Okay.
Discussion. All in favor?
All right. Now, we have a couple of others in here. As you will notice, we have several vacancies to the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. And the only other person that Larry has had, he's made contact with, but he doesn't have an application, is Tom Field. He thinks that Tom would like to be reappointed. He does not think that the other 2 here would, and we do have the application from Mr. James Gregory, Markhill, to go on that. And if we're supposed to really wait on an application from Tom, but we certainly could move forward with James.
James?
You're making that motion?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
I'll second.
Okay.
Discussion? Favor?
All right, now, the bottom is a little complicated. I'm getting where I've got a sore throat and sinus, so I'm going to have to lower this mask. These are annual appointments at the bottom down here. And as we can see, any of, and I'm going to scream, Land of the Sky Board of Delegates, any member of the BOC, and Terry Dolan is our backup. That's the fourth Wednesday meeting of every month. The Land of the Sky French Broad River Metropolitan Planning Organization, for which Matt and Mark currently sit on. The Land of the Sky Planning, Rural Planning Organization, which Matt sits on. And the Executive Board otherwise, where I serve as treasurer, it's not on here. That's a collective board by the board. Currently, I'm on the VIA Health Board, and we must add a second member. Donnie and I talked about this earlier today. I believe Yancey County did that last night, correct, Donnie?
They did.
And under the reorganization, we have to have two board members for VIA. Now, that vacant position can come from this board, from the DSS, including staff at DSS, from the health department, and or from the sheriff's office. And so that one is one we really need to fill tonight. And that's an open position that we can appoint from that large pool of people.
In order to keep things in order, can I back up real quick?
Absolutely.
Because we do have an application for Parks and Rec.
Oh, yeah, I was just reviewing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would like to nominate Carrie Ledford for one of the open positions at Parks and Rec.
Second that. Discussion? All in favor?
We also have Anna Purdue.
And I've asked, has anyone reached out to Anna Purdue? Last I knew, she had moved out of the county. Her application is over a year old, and I believe she moved out of the county about a year ago, so.
Well,
unless
we verify.
Yeah, unless she has moved back to the county and I didn't know about it, I would suggest that we.
We'll hold to verify.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good. All right, thank you, man.
Yep.
Okay, VIA Health. Who's gonna step up?
Well, we have Tammy here tonight. We'd be curious to know if someone from the health department would be better served to fill that second slot on the VIA Health Board. Do you have any thoughts on
She's
that?
back behind.
She's back behind
over
three.
there.
Tammy?
It's certainly something that if the commissioner would want that to occur, myself and Kathy Price both have extensive work with VIA Health.
So are you recommending either yourself or Kathy Price, or did I misread that comment?
Either of us, like I said, have extensive work with VIA and have worked with them for years in previous roles.
Kathy has less on her plate than you do, does she not?
She does.
Yeah.
So is it your recommendation that we nominate Kathy Price? I would move that we nominate Kathy Price to fill that spot on VIA Health.
Okay,
Discussion? All in favor?
Thank you, Tammy.
all right. Now, Mandy, I overlooked anything we have to do on this tonight?
Well, we need to do the
All right.
reappointments for Land of
Oh,
Sky
yeah.
and stuff,
Oh, yeah.
do we not?
So, any of us can attend, and do we want to leave it that way as just a standard delegate?
It worked out real well. Last month, Commissioner Garrison attended, and I think that worked out well. They called the roll. I signed in late. They called the roll, and I tried to jump in there not knowing anybody else was in there, and Garrison beat me to the punch. So it was real good. So, and it worked out perfect because I was in a place where I had an unstable internet connection. So Garrison took the ball and ran with it, and it was perfect.
Okay.
So
The,
I move that we keep it set up the same way that we have it set up right now.
In all cases? In all four of those?
Can we do all four? Do we have to put them individually?
Either way.
Yeah, I think it's up to us, isn't it, Don? So that being said, the two boards that I'm on, I'm willing to continue. Kind of be bad since I'm chairman of the rural
Yeah, I was
planning
gonna say.
organization to step down, so.
I'll make a motion, we, approve all those as they are.
I'll second. Yep.
And I'm thankful for your service. Tom.
And do we need to officially reappoint Norris back to Vi Health, or are we good there?
I think I'm still on a standing basis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stays as is.
As long as Mandy's got it straight in the minutes.
All right, I believe I stand to be corrected, that we now need to go back to close.
We got some.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have two more people to speak. I apologize.
Still here.
Yes.
Brian Coates and Richard Moore.
My bad, okay.
Brian here? Okay.
Thank you.
I almost used to appreciate it when public comment was at the end. So the fact that I got
Welcome
bumped at
back.
the end is really a great help.
It's ironic, isn't it?
It is ironic. Okay, so we're near the end. Everyone's used the restroom if they needed to, so I won't take too long. I was approached to talk about CHC, which I will do. First of all, I will say CHC's byline is improving housing and building community. One home and one neighbor at a time. We've heard from Chris about the work that CHC does. They have the faith-based groups that come in the summer and do a lot of housing repair and big maintenance work on houses. They serve as the agent for the county applying for home grants from the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium for the money that comes from the Federal Home Investment Partnership Act. They serve as a major Madison County applicant and contractor for the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency urgent repair and scattered home funding. And then they have recently opened Reclaim, and they have, by doing so, created jobs and diverted waste from Sammy's landfill, which of course is all good stuff. They've brought tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think the number Chris mentioned is over $1 million in the last year, dollars of grant funds annually into this county. And help divert tons of stuff, as I said. They are an economic engine for this county, and I think we have to recognize that CHC does a lot and brings a lot in. During the last 20 years, they have moved several times. They started in a home of an individual who is the executive director, an in-home office. Then they moved to Marshall High Studios. Then they moved to a little bedroom, converted bedroom office above the Friends of Madison County Animals when that was on Main Street, next to Chuck Mashburn's home. Then they moved to the CQ building. And in the CQ building, as in all those other locations, there was really no access for the elderly or the infirm to be able to go in and make their applications because they've all been on upstairs one way or another. So with that said, gentlemen, it's time we recognize and value CHC than what it provides to this community as both an economic engine and a lifeline to those struggling with substandard housing. It's time for us all to help the Community Housing Coalition of Madison County to have a position of permanence and a community in the community in a home of its own. So going back to CHC's byline, improving housing and building community, one home, one neighbor at a time. Let's make CHC one of those. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, a couple of items. Jeff Hyder just sent in a thumbs up. Michael? And we need to adjourn. No, we got it back.
Session.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not adjourning,
I'm sorry. I got a note there. Okay. I think we've got everything. I think you said adjourn this meeting so we can then return to the meeting.
We put the 6 o'clock meeting in recess.
Oh, okay, I got you now.
Yeah, okay,
So we will, make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
okay. Second,
Discussion, vote. All right.
this meeting is adjourned. Now we move.